Hello, everybody. This is Jawgeous, obviously. Hello. I have not been around for a few days. I've been on my weekend break with my fiance. She took me to a supercar day, which was like hosted by Virgin or something. I got to drive a Lamborghini, Aston Martin, Ferrari, and an Audi R8 V10. It was incredible. I've got some footage. I'm probably going to put it in a little video at some point. Um, but yeah, while I was away, I had people that were asking me to go through the patch notes and to try and provide you guys with my insight or very, very quick insight. I'm not going to break down everything. I'm going to share my opinion on it, and that is how this is going to go. I'm not gonna go crazy with this. Okay, I've been away from the game a little bit, trying to wait for this balance patch to come up, and I have gone through this on stream already. I just want to say that I have gone through this on stream already, but I didn't really cover it for long enough. I kind of got a little bit heated, so I'm just going to run through this pretty quickly. Okay. So first off, exhaustion stacking to 3 times duration. That's pretty interesting. That's a pretty interesting change. I don't know how that's going to work out. Confusion, this no longer deals damage when a skill is prevented from activating. So things where it's positional change, so things like perhaps throw on 4, rifle 4. That's things I can immediately think of where your target moves behind you, like flanks you perhaps, and then the skill still does confusion damage, even though it doesn't actually activate in the way that it's supposed to activate. Maybe that's how that works. Again, we won't really know until we see the change go through. I don't really need to go through all of the Elementalist changes, but I will say that the attempt to make Support Tempest more viable is definitely a good thing. Firebrand has like such a monopoly over the entire support market right now, to be honest. So with Support Tempest being given a bunch of more boon uptime, it's definitely leaning towards the right direction. However, I probably would have preferred Firebrand being toned down to meet Support Tempest. And everybody knows that I have an issue with the power creep, and I think that there's a defensive creep, and I think that there's a healing creep. So when there's things like this happening where you're literally just shilling out more boons, you're like, you get a boon, you get a boon, you get a boon, everybody gets this boon, you get this boon. It's like they're just upping that power creep. So if they tried really hard to just tone shit down and bring everything down to an equal level instead of just like trying to bring everything else up, I think we'd have a better status of PvP. Obviously, you can read this for yourself. I'm sure you guys have probably already read the patch notes as they are. But this is definitely going to make Support Tempest more viable moving forward. And it's not necessarily going to compete with Firebrand off the back of this, but it does mean that if you do choose to play Tempest support, then you definitely will be able to make a bit of a dent in whatever you're trying to, do. You're not just going to be some, flaccid fucking floppy thing just moving around the map being picked off by a thief and just not really being able to achieve anything, right? Okay, moving on. Engineer. The gyro reworks. Now, that is something I think is exceptionally interesting. It's going to bring a lot of, I would say, node sustain. I think it's going to bring back the bunker engineer, bunker scrapper kind of thing. I don't think that it's really going to be some rotational engineer that's suddenly on scrapper and brings all its gyros with it. The nature of gyros is essentially where you used to be static anyway, that where you place them they were, and now they're going to like maneuver with you, and the sheer amount of things that they can do while they're unkillable means that they're just going to maintain this presence that's going to dominate the node, or at least give you anti-condition, blinds, healing, like everything that you need will be at your disposal. So I think that that's going to be a really interesting thing to go into. One thing that I wasn't really happy with this change was the further nerf to Eclipse. Now, this just means that stability is even less prevalent on a Holosmith. I didn't really think that we had that much already, but 2 seconds is... Most dueling around a Holosmith, at least Holo on Holo, for example, is kind of dependent on which Holosmith manages to land their Corona Burst, because that stability is so important when you think about how much a Holosmith actually has in terms of crowd control. So when you've got even less stability, the Corona Burst window really doesn't apply that much. So you can kind of like outplay that stability uptime of a Holosmith. You just need to count 2 seconds after they land Corona Burst and then CC them. So I don't like that, because it's just it removes that dual ability element of Holo. Again, it's just really kind of like, most people won't really care about that. It's not a crazy change. It's not really gonna, manipulate how a Holosmith plays that much, but halving that window is really kind of punishing for no reason. I thought Holosmith was already at least. I thought the stability uptime was pretty balanced. I know there's some people that would go, oh, but Holosmith is busted. It does this much damage. Well, if you think the damage is busted, then maybe nerf the quickness uptime. Maybe make it so that the one spam doesn't do as much damage, right? Maybe nerf their might uptime. But the stability? Like, come on, bro. This is just like leading us to play Scrapper. They're just like, well, you want stab? All right, well, you just need to play a little bit of Scrapper. Then you have all the stab that you want. So that's kind of like, I think it's just kind of a shoe-in. They're just like, yeah, fuck Holosmith. Just play Scrapper. So I'm happy that there's change for Scrapper that makes Scrapper more viable, but I'm not happy that they've done that to Holosmith. I don't think it was necessary. I think it was a complete random change that isn't going to change anything really, besides make it even harder to play around stab uptime. Guardian, they have kind of cucked core Guardian quite a bit, as far as I'm aware. I do know that, this one right here is obviously to benefit DH. So obviously all the DH mains that I know are like, woo, DH got a buff. This is just kind of like such a random change. It really is. I wasn't really sure why they would make this change. I didn't think that True Shot wasn't useful already. It's pretty strong. It does a crazy amount of damage. Having the additional 300 range is just gonna make it even more obnoxious, just like a longbow ranger. Maybe that's why they've done it, to bring it up to par with that. I don't know. The igniting burst with the bug. Okay, so it's just a bug change. Cleansing flame increases the skill damage per hit by 21%. So again, we've got even more damage coming out of Holosmith there, but I don't really think that that's a huge change. Hallowed ground increases the skill's radius to 360. Okay, interesting. Amplified wrath increase the burning. Instead of burning foes, the Guardian blocks. This trait now increases the duration of the burning. Holy. Okay, so more burning uptime. They do this. These changes are happening pretty frequently now. I don't know if any of you guys have actually realized this, but they have these traits or well, I'm assuming, I think actually they are just all traits. I don't think they've done it to anything else, but it's essentially when you're holding this weapon whilst using this trait, you have a baseline of 120. But if you are wielding the weapon as well, then you have an additional 120. They're kind of, instead of using percentages, they're trying to come down to just like flat figures. And this is a really lazy change, in my opinion. You get 120 flat, and then you get 120 flat while wielding a staff. I can't remember the weapons that they did this to. I think it was sword on thief or something. I remember reading this. I think this is a really, really lazy change. I'd like to know what actually influences their decision making here. Okay, I'm gonna have to cough. Excuse me. So lesser smite condition, the damage of this trait has been reduced by 40%. That is huge. That is absolutely huge. That's a lot of damage loss for a core Guardian. Arguably something that made them super viable was their burst damage, or at least how they could sustain themselves and do damage simultaneously. That's a big change. Bug change, passive effect of the Guardian in addition to their allies. Righteous Instinct, this trait's critical chance bonus has been reduced from 50% to 25. So this kind of like means that Valkyrie doesn't provide 100% crit uptime now, I think. You might have to correct me if I'm wrong here, but as far as I'm aware, this means that they might have to use different amulets. They're not guaranteed crit chance anymore, 100%. So that's going to be very interesting as well. People are saying they've gutted Core Guardian this way. That may be true. I do not know. Again, got to wait to see how it plays out. Mesmer. Now, obviously, this is one that everybody wanted my opinion on. I just want to say real quick that I'm very, very happy that the ArenaNet PvP devs decided to provide us with some insight into their changes. Okay? I like this. I like their communication. I like what they're doing. I definitely think that it helps the community to understand where they're going with their movements. And this is something that they need to do every single time. The early access to the patch notes as well, that is a nice change because we get to see them before they roll out. We get to share our opinions. We get to prepare ourselves mentally for it. And perhaps, maybe in the future, they may act as a result of our initial feedback. Now, I know that that's not something that's going to happen immediately because I've already spoken to, like, say, Ben about this. Once they released this note, for example, there was no changes. It was basically on lockdown. So there is absolutely no way that anything that we suggested off the back of this would go into immediate change, but it may lead to something in future. We don't know. So that's just what I wanted to say, that just because I don't want it to sound like I'm just being really disrespectful here, because I'm possibly going to go in on this a little bit. I'm not going to go in depth, but I'm going to go in on this a little bit. Now, what we knew of Mesmer was that Mesmer was already dominating the PvP scene with Scepter recently. So Scepter 3 doing crazy amounts of damage on Sage Amulet, and even if you run, like, say, Demolishers on Chronomancer, you can use Scepter. And that damage is just phenomenal. It's so high. And, it's ranging from, like, 6 to 10,000. And you're like, Jesus fucking Christ, like, that needs to be, toned down a little bit. I think the power coefficient is way too high, right? And it needs to just calm down a little bit. And I'm really surprised that weapon is nowhere in this patch note. Okay? There is something pretty interesting that's going to cuck Chronomancer, so I'm quite happy with the Signet of Ether change. We're not going to be, seeing them do as much with their heal as they were previously. The Imaginary Axes, Axe 3, that's been toned down a lot. So this is a beneficial change. However, this is going to lead to Mirages not using Axe anymore, but using the Scepter damage instead. So you'll see more Sage Amulet Mesmers, and that will just be with the Scepter and not with the Axe. If you do see Axe, it's going to be an outdated build or maybe some kind of target clearance build. Leading to this, they... oh, wait, fuck. I think I did that on the wrong one. Axe of Symmetry. Yeah, sorry, fuck. Axes of Symmetry. Well, Axes of Symmetry got nerfed anyway. So, we have the Imaginary Axes and we have the Axes of Symmetry. I'm having a bit of a brain lag moment here. So, yeah, Axes of Symmetry... This is one of the main changes as well. They've reduced the confusion stack here as well. So that's great. It's down from 6 to 3. And the change that I wanted to bring light to was, again, Illusionary Ambush is down. So this is, again, a target clearance that's on 20 seconds to 35 seconds. So this is paired with the changes on Axes of Symmetry. You're going to see less people using Axe, and less people probably using Illusionary Ambush, because 35 seconds on just a target clearance dodge it's kind of a crazy utility to take just for that. So we'll probably see some change in that. And what I think is going to change is that there's going to be more people that are using the Blurred Inscriptions trait on Inspirations, I believe it is, that essentially makes you immune when you use a Signet. So what we might see is that somebody's going to take that alongside, now that Signet of Inspiration here has been changed to, from 30 seconds to 20 seconds, right? So now you've got even more immunity uptime potential, because, what people were doing was using Signet of the Ether, which is this ability right here, which they heal, they go immune for a second. Again, they can just move whilst that immunity is ticking through. They can cast through it. Then you've got the Signet of Inspiration that's down from 30 to 20. So again, the immunity uptime potential of that is available to you once more. So you can very quickly go through your immunity frames now. Whereas before, they had to wait the 30 seconds before that Signet was back up to offer them more immunity frame. So we may see even more Signet usage in future, considering they can probably fit yet another Signet into that rotation now, to extend their immunity frames whilst they're doing damage with things like Scepter that is 10k. So this is going to be this right here. I immediately just I saw like, you know, alarm bells. I was like, oh no, like this is ridiculous. I feel like this probably should have been a change that was only available in PvE, not in PvP. I don't like that. Mimic has been reduced from 40 to 30. This kind of extends into people that are using like signets. Again, I don't know how this is going to change. Maybe that's something they will use. I don't know. Cry of Pain, this is pretty good. This is, again, going to reduce the amount of confusion that you can get from your shatters. And there was one other thing. Here we go. Mirage Cloak. So there was a lot of people that didn't even know this, okay? There's a lot of people that, I mean, to be fair, I'm going to admit this. I didn't even know this, all right? I did not know this. Mirages had an extended evade duration. They had 1 second instead of 0.75. So the amount of things that make sense to me right now that I didn't know before, it's just like, it's incredible. For example, thinking I've timed the end of a dodge roll because, you know, you're literally fighting 8 out of 9 classes, and when they dodge roll, you know, when you've fought enough times, you know the end of that dodge roll mechanic. You just like, you have that timing embedded in you. You know when you're going to be able to hit them with something at the end of that dodge roll. So the amount of times that a Mirage was still immune, still evading at the end of a dodge roll, that I was just like, wait, what? Why did that miss? Wait, how? What is this? Now it makes sense. Because in my brain, I'm thinking that's a 0.75 dodge roll. Not knowing the actual figure, right? I'll admit, not knowing the exact time frame of what an evade frame was, but having played PvP long enough to know the extent to which a dodge roll, went in terms of timing. I had a rough understanding of what that timing was. So now it just makes so much sense that this was 1 second versus 0.75 on everything else, right? You see what I mean? So it's going to be really interesting now that Mesmers are going to be dodge rolling the same as everybody else. However, they will still have things like Master of Manipulation, where they're still going to be deflecting projectiles every single time that they dodge roll. So this is just going to be a really like interesting thing that, you know, going into this patch. I actually don't think what they've done is enough to fuck Mirage or to fuck Mesmer as a whole. I think what they've done actually is buff Chronomancer, and what they've done is they force people away from Axe and Interceptor that's arguably better. So what they've done is they've just kind of shifted the Mirage meta away from what currently exists into something that's just going to cock us on a mass scale. Now with even more power burst damage and less confusion and well, I mean, there's going to be confusion, torment, burning, bleeding, but there's going to be fucking power damage to match it. So I don't know what to do, dude. I don't know how to feel. I'm just kind of like, I'm in this state where I'm like, well, I might as well just bend over and let ArenaNet fuck me and just carry on playing PvP for the fun of it. You know, I don't know what to do, dude. I do not know. Okay. Anyway, moving swiftly onwards. That's basically what I think of that. Necromancer. Again, these changes were, I think, predominantly something that benefited PvE more than PvP. They have done, like, you know, some shout changes. So this will be interesting. Again, I don't know Reaper excessively well, so I'm not going to try and go into, in depth with this. But as far as I'm aware, most of this was changed to enable, Reaper more so in PvE. And this wasn't a huge change to PvP, but I do know that there's some people that do want to, test this out in PvP and see how it operates. So we may see a slight meta change, or at least, a few different builds that might be welcomed in that could, change the way that the meta is formed. The Ranger changes. Now, the only changes that I really saw that hard-cucked Soul Beast were these. So, Dolyak stance, we've seen it from 6 to 5, so that's the stab-up time. The one wolf pack, the duration is split between game modes, reduced from 8 to 6 seconds. The casting time of this has been reduced by about 0.5, so they have easier access to casting one wolf pack, but the duration is lower. So they get less uptime to do their burst, or at least to try and hard punish somebody. This is quite a hard nerf, I would say, in terms of damage output, because obviously, you're cutting it by 25%. But still, I don't think they've done enough to Soul Beast to actually make it that, that hard punished. I think it's still going to have access to all of its disengage kit. If the player is still very good, then they're still going to be able to 1v2, 1v3, 1v4. Now, one thing I'm referencing is that, like we had Flandry and we've seen Boyce. Both of these players have been able to kite players 1v3, 1v4, and we've seen that in monthly ATs, pretty much in finals actually as well, semi-finals and finals, when they're against like pretty good players. And it is frustrating that even after showcasing this on my stream and showcasing it on YouTube and bringing light to this, we still don't see change that encourages the Soul Beast to be more vulnerable. It's one thing that I really wanted from this. I thought, whoa, look at Flandry, 1v3ing, 1v4ing, and this was in the previous MAT. What developer doesn't look at that and go, well, yeah, maybe that's not how that's supposed to be. I don't think we want a duelist to be able to do that. That's kind of crazy. They just didn't. What am I doing this for? Why am I showcasing these things that are broken when they don't actually equate to change? And that's one thing I want to see more of. I don't think that this is significant enough to hard punish Soul Beast sustainability, but it will punish their damage sustained, so they won't be able to push you away as easy. Maybe it's going to force Soul Beast to be probably more disengage focused as opposed to being oppressive with their offensive capabilities. I don't know. Leader of the pack, the increased duration of this trait grants the ranger has been split between game modes and reduced from 150 to 120%. So again, slight changes, but definitely not massive. We'll see how this develops. Okay. Again, these things I believe are essentially beneficial to PvE and not so much PvP. I don't think any of this is really necessary change to PvP. Don't really need to think about this. Revenant. So again, looking at this, there was no massive changes to how you'll see the damage coming out of Revenant. I really don't think they've done anything to adjust its burst potential. Shackling Wave increased the skill's damage per each additional strike by 40% PvE only. So again, no changes really to that skill. Arguably, the power output from this is incredibly high, and we see from 4 to 8k coming out of this. They slowed the visual in the previous balance patch. I would like to see the actual damage effect being adjusted, not the visual. Keep the visual as is. It's not the visual that's the issue. It's the damage. It's the power creep. Once more, indirect changes that don't lead to change because people will still get hit by the Shackling Wave. They only have a certain amount of dodge rolls. You could say that is... you could say that that's smart play. Depends how you want to look at it. They force the dodge rolls out of the player and then use the Shackling Wave. But I mean, how many players do you have to deal with, like in a single team fight, where they're going to have used their dodge rolls already to dodge the majority of the high damage output, and then they just get picked off by the Shackling Wave? You have to just like understand there's just too much power creep. If you're willing to nerf Dagger 1 on Thief and nerf out lead attacks on Thief, then you need to take a look at skills like this that are doing a ton of damage. Not the visuals, lower the damage, okay? They've had it so that they have target destruction. This now grants 0.5 damage per stack of a vulnerability instead of flat 10% bonus. This is a slight adjustment, but again, you will almost always see the majority of Revenant targets with like 20 plus vulnerability. It's just how it works out. But still, it's a slight adjustment across the board, so you can't really complain at that. And everything else is trying to essentially make it so that the hybrid damage output is a little bit higher. So we do see Searing Fissure. The skill now applies 3 stacks of burning for 3 seconds on its first hit. Yada, yada, yada. This might may lead to, more hybrid output from the likes of Tenebrae's build, which is, it runs the axe, shield, sword. It's sword, shield, mace, axe. I want to say, or maybe they're slightly interchanged. I can't remember, but it's a hybrid build. It runs Sage Amulet for the crazy healing, and it does all the different types of damage that you want to see. So yeah, maybe that benefits that somehow. We'll see how that plays out. I still think we're going to see Revenant being one of the strongest rotational damage dealers in the meta. I don't think that we're going to see any change there at all. Actually, I think that even in an AT recently, or even, it was either an AT or a solo queue, somebody showed me there was like 3 Revenants in a single game, and they thought that that was acceptable because of how Revenant can control the momentum of a game. So yeah, one thing to look out for. Now, this thief change completely threw me off. And the reason being that I looked at this and I was like, you know that fucking meme where it's like, is this an out of season April Fool's joke? This is what I thought this was, okay? I thought that this was an out of fucking season April Fool's joke. Realistically, okay? Realistically, why? Right? For builds that use a pistol in their main hand with no offhand, the damage of this skill has been increased by 20%. Striking a foe with this skill now applies 4 seconds of bleeding per hit. Why? You've got things like Deadeye one-shotting people, okay? Literally doing like 15,000 damage, 20,000 damage, 30,000 damage with Death's Judgment. Okay, with Death's Judgment, it's got no internal cooldown. Well, it does have an internal cooldown, but it's not enough, and it doesn't have a cost. Okay, it doesn't have like, where's the initiative cost? Where's the punishment? Oh, they used dodge roll and they got in stealth, and that's the punishment. No. Okay, no. So my question is, why did someone get paid to make this change? Well, who got paid for this? Who got paid to make? Who thought that this is what we needed in the current meta? You know, that's genuinely when there's actual big problems in this game regarding, you know, balance change in PvP. Who thought that that was like a good change? Again, you could look at it, you go, well, this is only really, you know, viable for PvE. I mean, it's just a PvE change. Why the fuck is somebody running around in PvE with no fucking offhand? Why? Like, is this for meme value? Like, if you're gonna make meme changes, can we at least see some like actual structured PvP balance change? Because we're so dependent on balance, and you're offering us nothing, right? The Shadow Step change here, it's been increased from 10 seconds to 15 seconds on the return. Why? Shadow Step has been performing consistently well for as long as I can remember. Nobody asked for an additional like fucking 33%. Nobody asked for that. Why do we need that? We were absolutely fine with a 10-second return. If anything, the return value is, you know, perfect. It's not anything that is considered broken. It's not excessive. You know, you dip in, you make a decap, you dip out. It gives you more than enough time to actually, you know, get away from whatever you wanted to get away from and potentially outplay the opponent with the return. Why? Right? Where's the oh, well, we think that maybe we did too much change to Dagger Pistol, and we thought that, you know, considering we removed lead attacks, we removed the spike element of the DP Thief. So what we want to do is restore that. So, you know, where's that? Where's the adjustment? These are just complete fucking meme value. Like, there's no, these changes mean nothing. Absolutely zero. They're nothing. Absolutely nothing. Silent Scope. The first noticeable change that I can see that actually makes me happy that they cannot infinitely go in stealth anymore, or they'll find probably a way. But, you know, they get hard punished that the reveal time, which I think is 3 seconds, is now not equal to their ability of what they need to be in stealth for. So if they dodge roll, they go in for 1 second of stealth, and then they still have 2 seconds reveal that follows that after they've come out. So I think that's right. So like, it's gonna punish. Okay, so that's a good change, but it doesn't directly adjust the Death's Judgment. It changes the playstyle and how they're accurately gonna get into stealth. And I think that the majority of Deadeyes are actually running with Dagger Pistol now to extend their stealth duration. You know, arguably that the issue is the Binding Shadow combined with Mercy, which obviously is the F1 reset, combined with Death's Judgment damage. Like, they can literally, like, mark you, Deadeye's Mark, Binding Shadow, Mercy Reset, F1 again, Deadeye's Mark. So you basically get dazed, you prep the knockdown, you use Mercy to reset and get your initiative back, use your F1 again, and at this point, the person has been dazed twice, and they're about to be knocked down because they're marked at the same time that they have the Binding Shadow. So they essentially get completely shut down through all of their stability, through everything they could do to answer to that. And then you're, at the same time as they're, like, being chain dazed and everything, you can just, like, spam through, like, with 3, generate shitloads of might, at the same time hit them for, like, 10k, right? And then just dodge, roll, and use 1. Right? And if you dodge, roll, and use 1, you've killed your opponent because they've taken like 10,000 damage. They've probably taken 5,000 in Deadeye's Mark alone. Plus, they've taken like 2k from Binding Shadow. And then the follow-up of the Death's Judgment, which will have provided, you know, Malice. And, you know, in that time, there would be Malice generation, which would enable more damage on the Death's Judgment, and so on and so forth. You can see how quick it is to assassinate a target and hard punish. So why are they not focusing on that? Like, again, this is a change that is warranted, but everything else is just kind of irrelevant. They've made it lead attacks, fixed the bug with this trait that allow players to enter combat with more stacks of the damage effect than intended. Maybe this tackles the Rifle 4 usage of Deadeye that essentially gave them lead attacks. I don't know. Haven't been able to test it. It's not live. Nobody knows. There's just so many questionable changes here. So many. So again, don't really know what the majority of that is about. It seems like it's just meme value. The only one that's actually relevant is the silent scope change. Everything else is just, I got no words for it. And then finally, we have big meme warrior banner change. Winds of Disenchantment. This is something that very much so benefits World v World. I think that that's great. It's not going to be players that are just pumping down a wins and then fucking off again, and just to create a barrier between them and, you know, the two pirate ships. Now it's going to be pulsing around the player, so the player has to physically be in with the pack to make it viable. So it might lead to more clashes before anything plays out, or people are just going to push the Spellbreaker out of the meta and return to their pirate ship. You know, Elementalist, Necromancer. I'm just pumping shit at you from a distance. Here's some Deadeye Death's Judgments and 1 spam. Yeah, easy range damage. I don't know how they're gonna like really play into this. Maybe there'll be some Rifle Warriors. I don't know. This is gonna be like something that the World v World meta needs to determine, like how the players will play. Maybe somebody will find some way that works in, because it's going to completely change up everything and how they normally contest one another. The banner changes, again, this adjusts both in PvE and possibly PvP. Although you don't really see Banner Warrior unless you're in Ajax's stream whilst he's memeing in Unranked, doing almost 1 million healing damage. So again, this I would have liked to have seen the banner skills change lead to something that... So after they tackled the banner change, maybe they could then go, well, we realized that the full counter damage on Warrior was not actually providing enough to kill off clones from a Mesmer, for example, and Warriors kind of fall into the bottom of the pile as a duelist. So what we want to see is a little bit of change out there that's, you know, going to re-inspire the Warrior mains to come back and actually be able to contest nodes like they used to. Because we want to maintain that there is a set amount of duelists in this game that offer some strategic ability, and when we remove one of them like that, well, we want to put that back and give it a little bit of a boost, right? Where's the fucking change of that? You know, these changes are just... You know, I was saying in the back of my mind that I thought that if this balance patch really didn't bring what I thought it was going to bring, that I would just end up quitting the game. And you know what? I don't know how that's going to play out, because I'm going to give them a chance to see how this plays out. I'm going to see how this balance patch affects the meta. And I swear to God, if there is another meta, dude, if there is another meta that has Soul Beast that's just infinite sustain and unkillable, Mirage just sitting on the node, spamming out their shit and being unkillable, and the same meme value bullshit that I've been experiencing for the last 8 months, 9 months, 12 months, I do not know genuinely if I can keep it up. And I'm going to end it on that bombshell. I don't know if I can fucking keep playing Guild Wars 2 if the meta remains like this. I don't know if I can continue to play PvP, whether that means that I become a fucking PvE main and I get like a fucking raid team and I just do raids every day like Teapot because I literally cannot stomach this shit and somebody else takes over that whole like PvP scene. Whatever, dude. There is barely anybody that's casting right now. It's literally just me. Can they do they not understand how much exposure this game gets from things like that, from things like the monthly AT coverage, from things like the daily AT coverage, from all of the PvP coverage that we give as a collective, because PvP is one of the most rewatchable things, the most like volatile things. It has emotion, it has like skill value. It teaches you so much about the game and, you know, quick decision making and strategy. And it's so overlooked. And I hate that in the majority of these patch notes that I've gone through, that you can't really find anything that really benefits the current meta at all. There is, I can count it on less than 2 hands. I might even go as far as to say on 1 hand. And after waiting so long for this balance patch, I just don't know what to say anymore. I'm really disappointed. And I look forward to the next installment of PvP change. And I really thought that this had to be a good one. In the back of my mind, I really thought this had to be a good one. And that if it wasn't a good one, then there was a lot of people that were going to leave PvP. And I'm really worried that there are a lot of people who are truly, well and truly giving up because they have seen the changes and they've said, we've waited 3 months for this. We've waited 3 months for this, and this is what we get. So, you know, we do see a slight switch up, but we don't see anything that really changes the current meta. We're going to see maybe less core Guardians. Maybe we'll see some Scrappers. Maybe we'll see a different Mesmer build. But that's about it. I think it's a really, really pathetic change. That is my TLDR. It doesn't really change that much. Everything is still pretty much the same way as it was, if not maybe now Mesmer is slightly more busted with damage output, but its evasion frames have been nerfed. Scrap is going to be side noder. Guardian is going to be doing less. Maybe you'll see more DHs and less core Guardians. Otherwise, you're still going to see Scourge Necro. You're still going to see Firebrand support. You're still going to see Revenant. You're still going to see Thief. You're still going to see Deadeye, both Sword Dagger core. You're still going to see Holosmiths. You're still going to see everything the same way pretty much as it is. So all of this is basically non-factor. The last 3 months have been non-factor. Cheers, guys. I'll see you in the next one.